जय जय गुरुदेव। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् अभय चरणारविंद His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Nitai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. So today we are reading from Canto 3, chapter number 29, titled Explanation of Devotional Service, and text number 35. Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha Maya Manavyudiritaha Yayor Ekatarenaiva Purushaha Purusham Brajet. Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha Maya Manavyudiritaha Yayor Ekatarenaiva Purushaha Purusham Brajet.
Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha
Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha
Maya Manavyudiritaha
Udiritaha Yayor Ekatarenaiva
Purusha Purusham Brajet. Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha Maya
Purusham Braje. Vaishnavis.
Bhakti yogascha yogascha maya mana virudita yayore kaparineva purusha purusham braje.
Let's look at the word-to-word meaning. Bhakti yoga ha, devotional service. Cha and yoga ha, mystic yoga. Cha also, maya by me, Manavi, O daughter of Manu. Udiritaha, described. Yayo, of which two. Ekatarena, by either one. Eva, alone. Purushaha, a person. Purusham, the Supreme Person. Brajet, can achieve. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. My dear mother, O daughter of Manu, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by that devotional service. Please repeat. My dear mother, O daughter of Manu, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by that devotional service. So we have a long purport. So we will do Mangalacharan prayers, and then throughout the class we will read the purport and reflect on it. So let's do Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Dhapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhutar Mahadbirya Yima Puro Vibhu Nirmaya Shete Yadamoshu Purusha Bhunkter Gunam Shodasha Satmaka Solang Krishishta Bhagavan Bachamsi Me Shri Krishna Sharanam Sharanagatam Katha Amritam Satatapibatam Bhakti Vedanta Marga Panktanam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janna Prasannam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janna Prasannam. Hare Krishna again. So today we have a very beautiful verse to meditate on in this auspicious month of Purushottam, where we are reflecting on Purushaha Purusham Brajet. So such a beautiful verse. Before we delve into the purport given by Srila Prabhupada, let's get a little context and then we will start reading. So Mother Devahuti is asking her son Kapila Muni, who is none other than an incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself. So Mother Devahuti, accepting her son as her guru, she is submissively asking questions, and she's asking Kapila Muni to explain about the path of devotional service. So we have been hearing over the last few chapters. And so, moved by compassion and touched and being very pleased with the words of Mother Devahuti, Kapila Muni starts speaking. He first begins by, in this chapter, that is chapter 29, which is titled Explanation of Devotional Service, Kapila Muni begins by speaking about the different types of bhakti, that is, based on the different types of performers of bhakti, based on the state of consciousness, based on the different modes of nature that influences each person. According to that, each one performs bhakti. So Kapila Muni begins by first speaking about that. Even in our own personal experience, we can see sometimes we oscillate between different modes of material nature. Sometimes when we practice bhakti, it is in the mode of goodness. Sometimes it's in the mode of passion. Sometimes it's in the mode of ignorance, when our emotions take over us. So somehow we try to find a balance between all this. And then Kapila Muni speaks about pure devotional service, that is untouched by all these modes. And at that time, what happens? One's mind is completely attracted to hearing about the qualities, the names, the forms, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So that is pure devotional service, when one's mind is naturally attracted to hearing about Krishna. And here Kapila Muni says that for such a person, just as the river Ganga flows towards the ocean, similarly, such a person's devotional ecstasy flows towards the Supreme Lord naturally and without any interruptions by any material conditions. So there's a beautiful verse, that is 329, 11 to 12. So which is a very important verse in this chapter, which is also related to the verse that we are discussing today. Madguna shruti matrena mayi sarva guhashaye manogatir avichinna yatha gangamba sombudau lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya udahritam ahaitukya avyavahita ya bhakti purushottame. That is, just as river Ganga flows towards the ocean, the devotional ecstasy of a devotee who is performing pure devotional service flows naturally towards whom? Towards whom? Krishna, the Supreme Person. That is Purushottama. Can we repeat? Purushottama. That is, he is the Uttama of all the Purushas. So Purushaha also refers to all the living entities. But Uttama, he is the best, he is the supreme. So for one who is performing pure devotional service, their bhakti, that their natural love for Krishna takes them towards Purushottama. So in that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that this word avichinna is very important. That is, without any interruption. So no matter what material conditions we may be subjected to, it could be various different troubles or problems that people may be facing, or they may be in one place and then they might go to another place and then they might come back. So in whatever situation we are in, we don't let those material conditions affect us, but simply keep serving, so that through that what happens, our bhakti keeps constantly flowing towards Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, who is Purushottama. So then Kapila Muni speaks about how to practically perform devotional service. So he says that one has to practice one's prescribed duties, then take darshan of the deity in the temple, then offer respect to our gurus, to our acharyas, to all the Vaishnavas, be compassionate, then regulate one's senses, hear spiritual topics, and then realize the presence of the Supreme Lord as the Super Soul, as the Paramatma in one's own heart and in the hearts of others. So when we realize that, what happens? Then we try not to hurt anyone, either intentionally or unintentionally. And we offer respect to everyone. Because sometimes, as we saw, since we are tossed between these different modes, sometimes our emotions can overtake us. But still, at that time, we can catch ourselves. Oh, I made a mistake. I now have to change it. I now have to offer my respect to the Vaishnava. I have to keep a friendly relationship with everyone. So that brings us to today's verse, where Kapila Muni is saying that a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by that devotional service. That is, Bhakti Yogascha Yogascha Maya Manavyudiritaha Yayor Ekatarenaiva Purushaha Purusham Brajet. So a devotee who is applying the science of devotional service. So bhakti is not just something that is random, or it is not something that is whimsically performed. It is a science. So we all know when we do experiments in chemistry or physics or something, we have to have everything in the right combination. Because one mistake somewhere, and what will happen? Everything will change. The chemicals will become different. The results will be different. So similarly, it is said that practicing bhakti is like walking on a tightrope. It's like the edge of a sharp razor. A little inattention here and there, it can cut us. So therefore, we have to be very careful in the way we practice our bhakti. We cannot take it as a joke. But for a person who is sincerely trying to practice bhakti in such a way, this verse is telling us that such a person can achieve the abode of the Supreme Lord through that devotional service, which is what we are all eager for. And then in this class, we will also hear that what is that abode of the Supreme Lord? While it is Goloka Vrindavana, which we try to go after our death, even in this very world, we can experience that abode through our devotional service. Because in the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, in the last verse, Srila Prabhupada explains to us about how to live and how to leave this world. Because even in this very world, when we practice our devotional service, then bhakti is not different from the abode of Sri Krishna. Both are on the absolute plane. And therefore, when we practice bhakti, we realize that we are already on the path to reaching Krishna. So let's hear the purport, the first paragraph, and then we will reflect. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Herein, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila Dev, perfectly explains that the mystic yoga system, consisting of 8 different kinds of yoga activities, has to be performed with the aim of coming to the perfectional stage of bhakti yoga. It is not acceptable for one to be satisfied simply by practicing the sitting postures and thinking himself complete. By meditation, one must attain the stage of devotional service. As previously described, a yogi is advised to meditate on the form of Lord Vishnu from point to point, from the ankles to the legs, to the knees, to the thighs, to the chest, to the neck, and in this way gradually up to the face and then to the ornaments. There is no question of impersonal meditation. So in this first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains that one's practice of yoga, when we say yoga, we immediately think of the Ashtanga yoga. So all the different postures and then pranayama, all that. Now, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the perfection of that practice of yoga is that it should culminate in bhakti yoga. It should culminate in loving devotional service for Krishna. It should culminate in meditation on the form of Sri Krishna. It should culminate in absorption of thinking about Krishna. Without that, just practicing yoga is not an end in itself. So we have heard about the eightfold yoga system, that is the Ashtanga Yoga, which is given by sage Patanjali and which has been practiced by sages and by people through our Vedic tradition. So what are these 8 steps? Yama, that is abstinences, things that we shouldn't do. Then niyama, that is observances, things that we should do. That is the different rules, the different ways of following certain rituals, certain principles, our 4 regulative principles. All that comes under niyama. Then asana, that is different postures. So we see in Hatha Yoga, people try to practice different asanas, that is postures of sitting, breathing, standing up, all that. Then pranayama, that is breathing. We try to control our breath. Then pratyahara, and that is withdrawal or trying to control one's senses. So by practicing all this, by all these asanas, pranayama, all that, one begins to withdraw from the external situation and we try to go inward. Then dharana, that is concentration. So by withdrawing, what do? Do we just say, I've controlled my senses, I don't need anything more? No. That is where our progressive step towards Krishna begins. So at that point, when one is completely withdrawn, one begins to concentrate, one begins to focus within. And then dhyana, which is meditation. And then samadhi, which is absorption. So what is this meditation for us as bhakti yogis? It is to meditate on the form of the Supreme Lord. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in today's purport. And also in many previous verses we have seen, even in chapter 28, Kapila Muni explains in detail how to meditate on the form of the Lord, starting from his beautiful lotus feet. So when we come to take darshan of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, we can try to look at every detail. We can look at the beautiful flower anklets that he is wearing around his lotus feet. There's a little tulsi leaf sitting on his foot. And then we look at his legs, and then his thighs, then his hips, then the beautiful cloth that is decorating his waist. And then we go up and we look at his beautiful chest. And then we look at his arms, the way he's holding his beautiful flute. And then we meditate on his neck. We look at all the ornaments, the garlands that he's wearing. So we have devotees who are making beautiful garlands for Shri Shri Radha Gopinath every day. So when we come and when we take darshan of Radha Gopinath, we can meditate on his garland. What are the different flowers that are there? For example, today we can see orange and white. How beautifully devotees have strung them together with so much love for Radha Gopinath. And then we look at his beautiful face, and then his curly locks of hair, his lotus petal-like eyes, his sharp nose, his reddish lips, his beautiful ears with his kundala, and then his crown, his pagadi, all the decorations, the flowers on his head. So like that, we slowly meditate on the beautiful form of Shri Krishna. So that is the perfection of yoga. That is the perfection of our life. So Srila Prabhupada explains that by practicing yoga, we have to reach this stage of bhakti. And then, after this beautiful meditation, what do? Do we just simply feel happy? Oh, I've taken darshan of Radha Gopinath, now it's time to go home. That's it. No. But now begins our performance of bhakti. So then what happens? We engage in serving the Lord. We engage in serving our Guru. We engage in serving the devotees. So it is only at this point that bhakti yoga even begins. Actual bhakti yoga even begins. So let's move into the next paragraph of the purport. When by meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in all detail, one comes to the point of love of God, that is the point of bhakti yoga. And at that point, he must actually render service to the Lord out of transcendental love. By practice of such meditation, when one attains love of Sri Krishna, so that is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in this sentence. That is, by practicing this meditation on the form of the Lord, when one attains love of Krishna, we get attracted to him, then we should begin to serve the Lord. And in the next part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us hope that anyone who comes to the stage of bhakti can attain the Supreme Lord in his abode. That is, Goloka Vrindavana. And here Srila Prabhupada focuses on Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. So the purport: anyone who practices yoga and comes to the point of devotional service can attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental abode. Here it is clearly stated, Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. The Purusha, the living entity, goes to the Supreme Person. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity are qualitatively one. Both are defined as Purusha. The quality of Purusha exists both in the Supreme Godhead and in the living entity. Purusha means enjoyer, and the spirit of enjoyment is present both in the living entity and in the Supreme Lord. The difference is that the quantity of enjoyment is not equal. The living entity cannot experience the same quantity of enjoyment as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining about Purushaha. So he says that all the living entities, even we, are called as Purusha. But being part and parcel of Sri Krishna, we also have the tendency to enjoy. We also have a natural inclination to seek pleasure. But the difference is that being minute particles of Krishna, our enjoyment is not equal to that of Krishna. Or even our qualities are not equal to Krishna. We are Anu and Krishna is Vibhu. We cannot even measure him. He is so magnificent. So Srila Prabhupada explains here that this quantity of enjoyment is different between us and the Supreme Lord. And therefore, when we actually go to that supreme abode of Sri Krishna, which is on the absolute plane, there when we try to serve Sri Krishna, or even in this very material world, when we try to serve Krishna with a pure heart, then we become a part of that pleasure that Krishna is enjoying. So in the next part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives an example. An analogy may be made with a rich man and a poor man. The propensity for enjoyment is present in both, but the poor man cannot enjoy in the same quantity as the rich man. When the poor man dovetails his desires with those of the rich man, however, and when there is cooperation between the poor man and the rich man, or between the big and the small, then the enjoyment is shared equally. That is like Bhakti Yoga, Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. When the living entity enters into the kingdom of God and cooperates with the Supreme Lord by giving him enjoyment, he enjoys the same facility or the same amount of pleasure as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is very exciting for us, isn't it? Because when we realize that, yes, at one point we can also enjoy, we can also become a part of that pleasure that Krishna is experiencing, then that gives us so much hope. But to do that, what do we have to do? We have to dovetail our desires with the desire of the Supreme Lord. Because without that, it is not possible. And Srila Prabhupada is giving the example of a rich man and a poor man. Someone who has a lot of money and someone who doesn't. But then when there is cooperation between the two, when this man tries to help the rich person, when a poor man tries to serve a rich man, then what happens? He shares his money naturally, isn't it? So like that, when we dovetail our desires in pleasing the senses of the Supreme Lord, when we dovetail our desires with the desires of the Lord, then what happens? We can also enjoy that same pleasure that Krishna experiences. So I would kindly request you to read the rest of the purport here, where Srila Prabhupada says that when one tries to go away and one wants to enjoy on his own, then such a person is entangled. Such a person is caught up in the material world. And then Srila Prabhupada says that one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead by either the yoga process or the bhakti yoga process. And this indicates that factually there is no difference between yoga and bhakti yoga, because the target of both is Vishnu. In the modern age, however, a yoga process has been manufactured which aims at something void and impersonal. So Srila Prabhupada explains about the differences, where just practicing yoga on its own without bhakti in it, it is simply void. And then Srila Prabhupada says that if the yoga practice is actually performed according to the standard direction, there is no difference between yoga and bhakti yoga. So here we see that Srila Prabhupada is explaining about how to dovetail our desires with the desires of the Lord. And that is what is Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. That is going towards the Supreme Lord. So it is said that, let's try to reflect a little bit on just this point, Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. So it is said that chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is titled The Yoga of the Supreme Person, is an analytical study of how we can detach from the material world and find one's way to the spiritual world. So in this auspicious month of Purushottam, devotees recite even the verses from chapter 15, because it helps us to understand more about the Supreme Person, Shri Krishna, and how to align our desires with His desires. So in the first 3 verses of chapter 15, we see a description of the material world. And then in the 4th verse, Shri Krishna says how with the weapon of determination we have to detach ourselves from the material world. Now, as devotees, what does this detachment mean? It means engaging in Krishna's service. Whatever we have, we see that as Krishna's property. Then we simply engage it for Krishna's pleasure. So then, through the process of surrender, we have to go to that place where once gone, we never return. So that is Purushaha Purusham Vrajet. So Shri Krishna says, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. So Lord Krishna gives us hope that once we go to His abode, then we will never return to this material world. And we can also try to apply that in this world. That is, once we take to the path of bhakti, then we can never go back to our old ways of living. Isn't it? We can practically experience that. There may be difficulties, there may be challenges we may be facing as we are practicing bhakti, because we are all still not at that pure state. So we may be facing the influence of the modes of nature on us, and then we may be having all these different anarthas, different desires in our heart. All this, it's a clearing stage. All these things are slowly getting removed. We have our past sins, but nevertheless everything gets purified with time once we engage in bhakti. Sometimes we do offenses towards each other, knowingly, unknowingly. But then what happens? We immediately correct ourselves. And then by doing that, Krishna helps us to purify us. And by doing that, what happens? We are constantly immersed in serving Shri Krishna and his devotees. So Srila Prabhupada explains that first we have to desire to go to that abode of Shri Krishna. So this Purushaha Purusham Vrajet doesn't just automatically happen. We have to have that desire. We have to set our goal. So it is said, Gatir Krishna Matir Krishna Ratir Krishna Patir Krishna. That is Gatir Krishna. Once we set Krishna as our goal, then what happens? Matir Krishna. Then our mind begins to focus on Krishna all the time. Then what happens? Ratir Krishna. We get a spontaneous attraction for Krishna. When that happens, then what happens? Patir Krishna. Then Krishna becomes our pati. He becomes our protector. So once we have that attraction for Shri Radha Gopinath, then what happens? Radha Gopinath takes charge of our life. He sends our guru. He sends the right devotees in our life at the right time in our life. He gives us sadhu sangha. He gives us the understanding from the scriptures. He allows us to serve him. So through all this, what happens? Krishna draws us to his lotus feet. And by doing that, he is keeping us under his personal shelter. So that is Patir Krishna. So, to even do this, now how do we get all this? To even set Krishna as our goal, to get this attraction, to surrender to Krishna. It is said in Bhagavad Gita, it all begins with controlling our senses. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyindriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So, this is a very important aspect for anyone who is desiring Purusham Vrajet. So how do we control our senses? Is it that easy? So for us in Bhakti Yoga, what do? We simply engage our senses in serving Krishna, in serving Shri Krishna's dear devotees. So that way, what do? Whatever we do it for Krishna's pleasure and not for our own egoistic pleasure. So we see in Bhagavad Gita that initially Arjuna doesn't want to fight. Why? Because he was focused on Atmendriya Priti. That is, initially he was thinking, oh, I don't want to fight. I will cause this trouble. I will be harming my grandfather. This will happen, and all that. So he was focused on his own intentions, his own emotions. Then by hearing Bhagavad Gita at the end, what happened? He realized he has to simply surrender the results to Krishna, and simply for Krishna's pleasure, I will fight. So he then engaged his skills, his activities, everything for the pleasure of Krishna. So like that, our senses might be drawing us in different directions. But then what do we do to pull them back? We simply take them and engage them in serving Krishna. Just like Ambarish Maharaj. He engaged his mind in thinking about Krishna, his words in speaking about Krishna, his ears in hearing about Krishna, his hands in cleaning the temple of Krishna. He would walk to the temple of Krishna. So he would smell the tulsi and the flowers offered to Krishna. His tongue by tasting the prasada of Krishna. So by doing that, we can dovetail even our senses to serve Krishna. So now how do we do it? By practicing the Navavida Bhakti. That is, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atmanivedhanam. So simply by hearing about Krishna. So this is, we are trying to see how to engage our senses in serving Krishna. It all begins with Shravanam. We hear about Krishna. Then we sing his glories, Kirtanam. We speak about Krishna, Krishna Katha. Then Vishnu Smaranam. We engage our mind in constantly thinking about Krishna. Pada Sevanam. We try to worship the lotus feet of the Lord. Archanam. That is when we come to the temple and we worship. Then Vandanam. We offer prayers. Dhasyam. We can serve with the mood of a servant. Then Sakhyam, with the mood of friendship with the Lord and his devotees. Then Atma Nivedanam. So all this will ultimately lead us to surrender wholeheartedly to Krishna. So now we understand that we have to follow the Navavida Bhakti. But then how do we do it? How do we practice Navavida Bhakti? So Krishna says, Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. So, when we constantly associate with devotees, Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. So devotees of Krishna only discuss topics about Krishna. And by doing that, what happens? They derive great bliss and satisfaction. Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. So simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day. So after hearing, what do? We don't just stop here. we can go back, and then when we see other devotees, we can share with them. What did I hear in today's class? What is a point that touched my heart? What is it that I can learn? What is it that I can improve? What is it that will help me to serve Krishna more? So like that, we try to meditate. Or, oh, what was that verse? I want to learn that verse. So like that, we try to discuss with each other. And that way, by supporting each other, we can easily come to the stage of practicing Navavidha Bhakti. Now we might think, okay, I'm practicing Bhakti, but then how do we sustain? So, His Holiness Bhaktirasamrit Swami Maharaj, he says, it is very easy to begin something. It is very easy to even start a relationship. We see it with someone. But the challenge is in sustaining it. So, even in our relationship with Krishna, we have to stay focused on sustaining, to sustain on the path of bhakti. So how do we do that? And Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. So Shri Krishna says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So, Krishna gives us the intelligence to sustain on our path of bhakti. On our own, it is very difficult because there is always a chance for us to detour and go or do something. But then at every point, if we try to constantly focus on Krishna, hear about him, sing about him, speak about him, then Krishna gives us the intelligence on how to go back towards him. Dadami buddhi yogam tam enamam upayanti te. So, how do we get that intelligence? By taking instructions from our Guru, by taking instructions from our scriptures, from Bhagavad Gita, from Srimad Bhagavatam, by taking advice from our mentors, our seniors, our Shiksha Gurus. So, by doing all this, Krishna will help us to progress on the path of bhakti. And through the blessings of our Guru, through the blessings of Vaishnavas. So it is very important for all of us to constantly be under the shelter of the blessings of our Guru and under the blessings of Vaishnavas. Now, to do all this, ultimately we need the mercy of Shri Krishna. Only when Krishna's mercy is there, all these steps can follow one by one. Now, how does Krishna's mercy flow towards us? Through Srimati Radharani. Because Srimati Radharani is the pleasure-giving potency of Shri Krishna. So when she is merciful, through her mercy, she helps a devotee to constantly be engaged in serving Krishna and then to ultimately reach his abode. So we'll end with this little beautiful verse where Shri Krishna speaks to the gopis of Vrindavana. So here Shri Krishna says about how when once we begin to serve Shri Krishna, once we fix our mind on Krishna, then what happens? Our material desires are gone. How? Just like the barley corns are burned by the sun. That is, the desire of those who fix their minds on me does not lead to material desire for sense gratification, just as barley corns burned by the sun and then cooked can no longer grow into new sprouts. So no matter what material desires we have, once we come to the stage of bhakti, once we keep practicing, what happens? What we heard in today's verse, that is, Bhakti yogascha maya manavyudiritaha yayore katarenaiva purushaha purusham brajet. That is, for one who is steadily practicing bhakti yoga, one can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by that devotional service. So what does Shri Krishna tell the gopis of Vrindavana? Namaya veshitadiyam kama kamaya kalpate bharjita kvatita dana prayo bijayane shate. So for such a person whose mind is fixed on Shri Krishna, even though different desires flow into our heart, we can remain calm and steady, just like the ocean. So again, Shri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, just as the rivers flow towards the ocean, and yet the ocean remains calm, steady. So like that, our desire for serving Krishna, once that is intensified, then that will keep us in that steady state of practicing bhakti. So on that note, there is a lot more to reflect on, but we will just quickly hear this one line from this beautiful song so that we can keep our mind fixed on Shri Krishna's beautiful form, his leela, his pastimes, his qualities. And by doing that, we can achieve Purushaha Purusham Brajet. So let's try to meditate on Shri Krishna, who's wearing beautiful anklets and he's wearing beautiful bracelets and he's the beautiful blue-colored Lord. Oh dear Krishna, please come to me. He's wearing a beautiful saffron cloth. He's holding a flute in his hands and his body is anointed with sandalwood. And the one who showed the universe to Mother Yashoda, oh Shri Krishna, please come towards me. Krishna ni bhegane bharo, Krishna ni begane bharo, begane bharo, mukhabanne toro, begane ಬಾರೋ ಮುಖವನ್ನೇ ತೋರೋ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ಮುಖವನ್ನೇ ತೋರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ಕಾಲಲಂದುಗೆ ಗೆಜ್ಜೆ ನೀಲದ ಬಾಬುಳಿ ನೀಲ ವರ್ಣನೆ ನಾಟ್ಯ ಆಡುತ್ತ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ ತಾಯಿಗೆ ಬಾಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜಗವನ್ನ ತೋರಿದ ತಾಯಿಗೆ ಬಾಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜಗವನ್ನೇ ತೋರಿದ ಜಗದೋ ಧಾರಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಡುಪಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಜಗದೋ ಧಾರಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಉಡುಪಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ನೀ ಬೇಗನೆ ಬಾರೋ जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय शिला प्रभुपाद की जय शिला गुरुदेव की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे गौर भक्तवृंद की जय Any questions? Yes, Prabhuji. It's okay.